Today I'll be giving a walkthrough on this webinar on topic contribution of information security in digital transformation. What are we going to look today? So what is information security? CAA triad, information classification, broad cybersecurity domains, network security, application security, ransomware attacks. That will be a slight case study, and the career options you have in the cybersecurity domain. So some of these terms may be new to you. Maybe I'll anyway explain it over the. So first of all, what is information and the need to protect it? So basically, what is an information? So we all would have read about this term information right from our elementary, right? So it is something which says it is a processed data, right? So processed data, a data that has some value. So basically, information is can be a physical or digital form. So information in the papers, right? The paperwork, hard copies, the application forms, or the legal documents. All these are informations in the physical form, and the digital form. Today's world is completely shifting towards the digital transformation. So where we have everything stored in the servers, in the memories of our PCs and computers, right? So this information is something of value, and from an organization perspective, it is something more valued for an organization for the safe functioning of the entire organization. Let's see what are the critical characteristics of an information. So before that, let me tell you. So information is something, anything which describes you, right? So anything which describes something or gives you an idea about what you're looking at. So that is, say, for example, your date of birth. If I have the date of birth, so I can derive what is your age. So that is some information which helps me to derive your age. Yeah. So here, let's see what are the critical characteristics of an information. So first thing is availability, and availability perspective from the organization, right? Let's say I want to use an information. Let it be an application, a web application, or a particular data from a server. I need to access it, or an Excel sheet, or a PPT, PowerPoint presentation, whatever. So I need to have availability. I need to have it available whenever I want to use it. So that is a critical characteristics of information. Next will be accuracy. So I have the information available for me to use, but I should be sure that it is accurate. So for example, if, as I told you, right, so let's take an example of the date of birth. So if your date of birth is 2005, you're born in 2005, and today you are applying for a job, and it requires you to be less than 15 years of age, then if in case if your data is not accurate, if it is mentioned 2004 instead of 2005, then you are not eligible, right? So that that should be accurate. So accuracy plays a major role in that. So that's where accuracy is a critical characteristic of information. So next, coming to authenticity. So when we say authenticity, accuracy and authenticity may sound similar to you, but it's actually not similar. So let me explain. So let's take the previous example. So I told 2005 is your date of birth, right? Let's assume 2005 is your date of birth, but to be maybe 2004 is your date of birth, and to be eligible for that particular position, you are trying to falsify the data, falsify the information. You're providing a false information as 2005 is your date of birth. So that is not authentic data, though it is available to you and it is accurate according to you, but it's not authentic, right? So that authenticity of data should be validated. So validation of data, validation of the information is essential. So that is another critical characteristic of information. So next will be confidentiality. So you have this data available, you have the information authentic and accurate, but who can access it? So you may not wish to disclose your date of birth to everyone, right? Not just date of birth, anything for that matter. Let's say an organization, critical data about the business or the financial and legal documents of the business of an organization, that should not be accessible to anyone. Even within the organization, it should not be accessible by everyone, right? So it should be accessible only by a group of people, by, say, for example, the top level management or the HR department, whatsoever. So that confidentiality, who can access, and the access restriction to that particular group alone. So that is confidentiality of the information. So next will be integrity, the completeness of the data or the information which we have. So at any point in time, it should be available, and also it should be available complete. It should not be tampered with. No one should be tampering the data. And for example, I'll just simply go open that particular file and make some changes and save it, and nobody knows. So that is tampering the data, right? So whatever information was there, it's not accurate right now. So to maintain accuracy, we need integrity as well. So that plays a major role. And utility. So coming to utility, it is the usability, right? So when the information is available, information is just available on the server or on the memory, but you should be able to access it. So you should be able to use it. So that usability, that access provisions should be there. So that also plays a major role for information access. So that is another critical characteristic. The last thing will be the possession. So who owns it, who stores it, or how it is processed. So every organization has its own servers secured by firewalls. Inside the organization we have a network infrastructure where all the data is stored and maintained, safe and secure. So that possession is another critical characteristics of information. Four important information security functions for an organization. Information security. So we have talked about information and what are the critical characteristics of an information. Coming to the functions of for an organization, right? So how information security plays a role. So an organization is completely dependent on the critical data and information it holds. Everything which we do, right, from information security, like protecting the data, so that is the main objective. Any organization would have a vision and mission statement. So based on their vision and mission statements, the governance is done for the organization, and how the policies are defined, what level of management can have access to what level of information, the financial data that is disclosed in public. So all these things are very crucial for the organization. So that is to be taken care by information security policies and framework. So for that, every organization would have the information security policies, which provides a safe and secure access to the information. The information of the organization is protected so that it will be accessible only to the target audience, and only they can have the visibility and usability for that particular information. Next is protecting the data that the organization collects and uses. So as I told, the organization has very rigid IT infrastructure. In the ideal case, it should be having a very secure network where unauthorized or unauthenticated breach should happen. That will be provided by information security frameworks. So frameworks, in the sense, these are just policies, the policies which define who will be having the access, what is the information that we have, who will be the owner of that information, and who will be having the access to that information. It may be either read-only access, just a view access, or a read and write access. And you can also have options to edit or delete the information based on the level of access. So these things will be taken care by the information security function. So now, as I told, the functions of information security. So we wanted to secure the information, but it's not that we simply put the data in a locker and nobody can access. It's not like that. So information should be accessible by every individual who has the access or who is deemed to access that particular information. So from that perspective, it is not actually 100% possible to secure the information or the data of an organization. Nothing can be 100% secure. So either it be in the manufacturing or even in information security, it is not 100% secure. So every day there are technologies evolving, and everything is shifting towards digital transformation. And that, having said that, all the information in the form of digital data, right? So let us say, for example, if I have a application today, so it runs on a particular version, say 2.0 is the version running for that application. So that application may have some vulnerability. So there may be some bug in the code, or there may be some exploit available in the internet. So people may try to exploit it. So hackers may try to steal the data. So in that case, we need to again make some changes to the system which holds the data. So that will be a task which is very laborious, and it includes some technical expertise, and it is not just like that a job which can be easily achieved. It needs some technical expertise, as I told. So having said that, it's not 100% secure. Information is not 100% secure, but still it's just a continuous process where we follow to keep it secure, either it be securing our network or the applications, or securing our client access, providing the access only to the restricted groups, or even restricting access only to the top level management within the organization as well. So these things contribute to the information security. Also, apart from all the security policies we define, all the access restrictions, and all the security controls in place, like firewall, like whatever it is. So all the antivirus signatures, keeping your softwares up to date. So apart from all these, finally, end of the day, it is with the end users. So it is not just the organization that can implement just the controls and everything is secure. It's not like that. So the users, right? So the end users should have the responsibility. So information security is a collective responsibility. So it's not just a single day's task where everything works out on a single day. It should be practiced. It should be taken into practice on a daily basis. So we'll see that in the later sections. CIA triad, information security. So CIA triad, this is the basic building block of information security. So any organization is built on these three essential controls. So these three are the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So every day we are striving hard to protect the data, right? So from the security perspective, information is the ultimate goal which needs to be secured. So that's our ultimate objective. So this confidentiality, integrity, and availability, and non-repudiation. I'll tell you what non-repudiation is. So first, confidentiality. So confidentiality is, as I told you, in limit the access of information only to authorized individuals. So here, let us say, for example, there is a list of servers, the asset details. So assets in the sense the servers, the network devices, the firewalls, the applications hosted on the servers. So all these network devices, these are the assets of an organization. These hold the digital assets as well. For example, a server is a physical asset, whereas it holds the digital data as well. So that also is an asset to the organization. That is the information. Data or the information should be accessed only by the limited restricted group. So as I told you, if it is going to be some policy that is to be defined for the entire organization, say for example, if there is some HR policy that is getting updated, so that will be accessed by the HR department. So for example, if there is some new joinee in the organization, list of new joinees, their details, their personal details, their package, what is the CTC they draw from the company. So all these details will be stored in the servers that belongs to the HR department. So they will be having access to it. So likewise, let us say if it is a financial information, or if there is some plans to procure some new tools for the organization, or a new business deals with different companies or different clients. So all these things will not be disclosed to the entire organization. It will be limited only within a particular group. So that will be a confidential data. So that is confidentiality, which talks about restricting the information only to the target audience, the authorized individual. So next will be integrity. So integrity is the completeness of the data or the information which we hold. So the confidential data is accessible only to a particular group, but whether we are ensuring that it is 100% accurate, and it is available all the time, in a complete manner. So for example, if I say there are two vendors for the organization who are going to provide help us build our service. So if the server details is provided only for a single vendor, and the second vendor detail is tampered by anyone, any insider within the organization or who is having the access to this data, so that will be a problem. So maybe that will make a trouble when implementing the infrastructure, right? So in these scenarios, integrity should be taken care. So to maintain the integrity, it is always required to provide access to the individuals, which covers the confidentiality, and additionally we need to provide authentication and authorization to those individuals, and we also need to log the activity of these users, so that make sure that the only the intended user is accessing, and even if there is some data tampered, we can identify so who has accessed it, and from the last activity we can identify who has made the changes to the data. So that should be ensured. That talks about integrity. And next is the availability. Let us say we have the data complete, and it is only provided to a particular group of people, but still if you're not able to access it, then it's of no use, right? So let's say if I'm trying to log into my PF account, and if I am trying to look at my current what is the balance I have in my PF account, so that data, if I'm not able to log in, or if the server is down, these cases will not help me out when I need the data really crucial. So that particular availability is essential, because you have to get the details whenever you require. So if the information is available, but you're not able to access it when it is required, then there's no point of it. So that is availability. So availability can be taken in this perspective, and another perspective of it would be that let us say you have the data but you don't have access to it. So you don't have the access to it, but if the data is still there, but then again it's of no use. So even their availability should come along with some restricted accessibility. So that comes here. So that completes the CAA trial. So additionally we have non-repudiation. So non-repudiation is something which contributes to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability in some manner. Let me tell you. So for example, so let us consider there is an email. Okay, so there is an email that your for example, your boss has sent you an email to delete the data from a server. So you have deleted that data just because your boss has told. So you have to you can't deny what your manager says you, right? So you have deleted the data, but what your manager is doing is it's not a legit uh, action that is to be done. So he told you, but you didn't validate why it's to be deleted, but you simply deleted the data, which is which is very confidential and essential for the organization. But by mistake you have deleted it just because your manager has told you to, and your manager would have deleted the mail that he has sent you to delete the data on the server. So now your manager may say that I have not told you to delete, I have not sent you any mail. He may tell you that, and when you check his outbox, there may not be any mail sent to you because he has deleted his sent items, right? In that case, anyway you will have the mail in your inbox which he has sent. So that is one thing. And another part is, even if you don't have the mail in your inbox, or in your storage, it will be there on the mail server. So this kind of malpractices, and such mishaps can be avoided by non-repudiation. So logging is very essential in information security. So whatever action is done, it should be logged. So whether you log into a server, when did you log in, the timestamp, what server did you log in, what was your target server, or whether you're logging into a PC or a server, and what actions you're doing, whether you're editing something or you're just viewing a file. Even viewing a file also should be logged. So everything should be logged so that nothing goes unnoticed, and in future it will help you for any analysis that needs to be done, or any investigation that has to be taken for any mishap that has happened. So these form the basic building blocks of information security. So when you ensure these 3 and 4 things, This will ensure that all your information, the network level, or let it be the application level, so at all layers you're minimizing the risk. So that's what it implies here. This is what it is, which we discussed right now. So each one is complementing to each other. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability. So all these contribute to each other to ensure that there is no gap or any risk in the overall information security policy or the structure of the organization. We have the information, so we don't know what level of information and what is that information, what kind of security control it requires, or what who to provide the access to. So it's just an information, but you don't know the severity of it, or the what kind of sensitive implications it can provide. So all these things needs to be known, right? Only then you can provide the security for that based on the sensitivity or severity of the. So here we talk about that. So any information, right? Let it be the paperwork, let it be digital data, or whatever. So every information, everything needs to be categorized, classified based on the severity of it. So if you see here, we have confidential, sensitive, restricted, public. So this information, right? So confidential, it will be accessible by the top management. So very sensitive information, top secret, will be maintained here. Sensitive. So sensitive here will be privacy related. Let us say, as I told you, it may be personal identifiable information, which of each employee in the organization, which should not be disclosed. So these things should be taken care very crucially, so that it is not disclosed to the public or disclosed to everyone else in the organization. Next will be restricted. So restricted, maybe it is communicated only to the internal organization. Let us say there is some change in the team name, or how the management is going to take forward the goals for the next quarter. So some things like that. So all these internal organizational decisions on all these communications will be sent to all the employees within the organization, and it will not be disclosed to the public. So next will be public. So this will be something like where the company, it discloses the new CEO joining to the organization, or the financial performance metrics of the organization for the last quarter. So these things, which is essential to be reported to the public, disclosed to the public, or even let us say there are some openings in an organization. You have the opening for this position, these are the requirements we are looking for. So these are public information that are disclosed, which will not have any impact, but it is intended by the organization. So that is the reason they disclose these. So here another thing is the confidential, sensitive, restricted, public. So who will be defining these classifications or severities of the information? That is something done by the respective owners. So when we say owners, right? Let us say it may be the information, the data which as such, or the server which holds the information. So both the information that is there on the server, or the storage space, and the storage server itself. So both these should be classified. So only then we can arrive at a proper conclusion on what level of security controls that needs to be provided. Say for example, if there is an application, right? So that application will belong to the organization. Let's say SkillLink is the organization, skilllink.com is the website. So that needs to be, so everyone from the internet should be able to view the page and understand what are the services provided, what kind of what are being provided to the people outside. So these things can be accessed by everyone from the internet. So that will not be a confidential or a sensitive or a restricted data. So in that case it will be a public information that is available to any and everyone. Maybe in case if there is something like the server, so this is the data that is being classified. So another classification will be assets. So for assets, when we say again, so the asset that holds major information, very top secret or very sensitive information of the organization, or the business critical data. So that will be classified as critical. And maybe, as we know nowadays, we don't go for paperwork, it's everything on the servers. So let's say we have the information on the database server. So that database itself is a server, right? So that is also an asset to the organization which needs to be protected, and that will be classified as a confidential or a severe critical or high severity asset. So it's like that. So it's not only the information that is being classified, it is also the asset that holds it, the physical asset which holds the data, even that will be classified. So the classification goes on like critical, high, medium, or low. So these kind of classifications we have. So we have seen the classification. Now how do we protect it? So so far we have seen what is the information and why it is required to be protected. So now, well, let's see how it needs to be protected, and what at what levels we need to protect it. So first thing will be data at rest. So as I told you, there is a set of information, right? As I told you, let us say we have a team which takes care of the procurement. Let's say it is supply chain team. So they have a database server. So all the information about the procurement, the DC, what is the procurement price of it, all these things. So all this information will be stored in the database. So this database is storing the data at rest. So the data is not traveling anywhere, it's just stored on a particular place on the database server. So that should be secured. So in the current best practices for securing the data at rest, what we do is we hash the password. So for example, if we are storing the username and password, we don't actually store the plain text of the password. For example, if you're giving password at 123, so that password will not be stored on the database as such. Whatever you give, it will not be a plain text. Instead, we will be storing it as a hashed password. Hashing is a mathematical algorithm that is done so that it will be converted, your whatever password you're giving, that plain text will be converted into a fixed length value. So that value will be stored in the database, so that even in case if there is any database breach, attacker or the hacker who has successfully gained access to the database server, he will not be able to look at the password directly, he will only have the hash. So it will be a difficult task for him to crack the password. That is one security control we maintain at the data at rest on the storage devices. So encrypting the storage, storing the values as hashes. So these things are some security measures for the data at rest. So next will be data in transit. So data in transit, let us take an example of a bank transaction. Everyone would have used net banking, right? So in net banking, from your browser, let it be mobile or from your PC, you're logging into your bank account and you are doing a transaction. So if there is some insecure communication from your browser to the server of the bank, right? If the communication is not encrypted, then some attacker can sniff your traffic, and he can intercept the data. He can add some additional data, or for example, if you're sending some money, if the transaction is happening to a different account, your friend's account, the account number you would have mentioned, right? So that can be tampered, and the attacker can enter his account number and he can send it back to the server. So the server thinks that the destination or the beneficiary account is this, and he will beneficiary account is uh, the attacker's account, and he will try to the bank will try to the bank will actually give the transaction a successful message to the user who then did the transaction, but the amount would have been credited to the attacker instead of the intended beneficiary. So these things will happen when there is no proper encryption channel for the data in transit. So whatever data in transit, so any traffic, right, that goes through the wires, so that should be encrypted. So for that we use SSL or TLS mechanism certificates we use. So the organization, every organization, if you you use the browser, right? If you Google the bank accounts or some URLs, you will see a padlock symbol, a green color lock symbol on the address bar. So that means that the website is using a SSL or a TLS certificate. So a TLS certificate is something which organization, right? Say for example, when we talk about the bank transaction, the bank will get a TLS certificate from a authorized certificate authority. So we have several certification authorities like SSL Labs, DigiCert, and there are many Entrust, so many certificate providers. So what do they do is they will. So if you are a bank, you have a bank, right? You have an application, web application. So what you do is you apply for a certificate, TLS certificate to the certificate authority. So what they will do is they will validate that whether you are actually the which on which name you have registered. They will check your background. They will do a verification, and then they will provide you a certificate. So this digital certificate which will be provided to you, you will install it on your server, and every time when a user is making a call to to the browser, when he or she is making a call to the server or to the web application, there will be a key negotiation between your browser and the server. So every browser, if you check, either it be Google Chrome, Firefox, or whatever, so all the browsers will have the public keys. So they will have the keys provided by the certificate authorities. So all these keys will be there on the browser, and during the key negotiation, they will validate that this is from a valid certificate authority. So the browser trusts that particular key, and the key negotiation will happen. The After that, your all your traffic is encrypted. It is a bit technical stuff that happens where the all the data that passes between the browser and the server, it will be encrypted using the shared key. So everything goes in a encrypted channel, so that even if an attacker is able to intercept your traffic, he will not be able to view the data. So it will not be able to actually negotiate with your browser or the server. So he will be rejected the connection. So that's what it is about. So that is something we have in data in transit.